Howdy folks, I'm finally back with another review. This time, we'll be returning to the world, or worlds, of Mortal Kombat and taking a look at the 2021 film. Now you might be wondering, why am I reviewing this movie and not, let's say, Mortal Kombat Annihilation? And the answer is simple. I may love schlock, but I'm not a masochist. Oh yeah, and a sequel to the 2021 film releases in a few weeks. Man, it's been a crazy 5 years, huh? I feel like they really should have released this earlier. Almost like they were going to, and then just delayed it for some reason. Weird. Wonder where I got that notion from. Anyways, let's go a bit into the film's background first, shall we? Mortal Kombat, not to be confused with the original film from 1995 that is based on the game property of the same name, is a 2021 film that was directed by Simon McQuoid. He is best known for, well, Mortal Kombat 2021. Apparently this movie was his directorial debut, and we'll get into how it went soon. The screenplay for the film was done by Greg Russo and Dave Callaham, and is also based on a story by Oren Uziel and the aforementioned Greg Russo. As stated before, this film was based on the Mortal Kombat game franchise, which was created by Ed Boon and John Tobias. As for producers, the film had a decent amount, with the most noteworthy one being James Wan, who is best known for his work in horror franchises, which tracks. After all, Mortal Kombat has a history of ingratiating itself with horror mainstays, such as Freddy Krueger, Leatherface, Jason Voorhees, and Homelander. Yeah. The production companies behind the film were New Line Cinema, Atomic Monster, and Broken Road Productions. The film was distributed by Warner Bros. Pictures. The film released April 8th, 2021 internationally, and April 23rd in the US. The film had an estimated budget of $55 million and made around $84 million in profit. What's interesting to note is that this released during the pandemic, which, man, I can't believe it's been like 6 years already since that whole thing started. Time really flies. Anyways, the film released both in theaters and also showed up on the streaming platform HBO Max at the same time. While the film may not have been a huge blockbuster at the theaters, it actually garnered a massive amount of attention at home, having been streamed around 5.6 million times at US households alone. It was one of the top 5 most pirated films of that year as well. I remember being in grad school when the film first came out, actually. I personally bought I think a $10 subscription to HBO Max just so I could watch the film, and then promptly canceled my sub because I was a broke college student at the time. The last thing I needed was more monthly payments. I mean, I'm still broke now, but hey, at least I'm free from the shackles of academia. I mean, I'm still paying off loans, so guess I'm not completely free either. Anyways, having seen a new film at home that was playing at theaters at the same time was a bit of a surreal experience. Sure, it wasn't the same as watching a film on a massive screen, but I did get to order some Pizza Hut and pig out while I watched the movie in the comfort of my own living room. And overall, it was still a cheaper experience than having to go to AMC. And since the film did okay at the box office and got a ton of views at home, it's now getting a sequel. But before that happens, we still gotta actually review the movie first. Without further ado, let's get a bit into the story, shall we? Now, normally on this channel I like to avoid spoilers while I review things, but since it's Mortal Kombat and death doesn't matter, I figure I can reveal a few things. But to be nice, I'll only show official trailer footage and timestamp where you can skip ahead for a spoiler-free overview. So, if you don't want to hear any spoilers, skip to here. Okie dokie, I think they're gone. Anyways, the film starts in feudal Japan where a ninja named Hanzo Asashi, who's played by Hiroyuki Sanada, is busy farming at his compound with his family and clan. Suddenly he's attacked by assassins, who proceed to murder everyone. Yes, not just the men, but the women and children too. This results in the first big fight scene of the film, where Hanzo must fight the leader of the assassins, Bihan, who is played by Joe Talsim. After a scuffle, Hanzo is murdered by Bihan. Oh yeah, and Bihan has ice powers, forgot to mention that. Well anyways, when Bihan leaves, the mortally injured Hanzo crawls towards his compound before succumbing to his injuries and disappearing in fiery, swirly tentacle things, I think. Then, in a crash of lightning, a being appears. He has a cool hat and lightning eyes. He's played by Tadanobu Asano. He approaches the compound and hears a baby cry, discovering that Hanzo's wife managed to hide one of her children before being murdered. The mysterious being then takes this child. We are then given a lot of exposition about what the heck is going on before we proceed to skip forward hundreds of years to the present, where we were met with an MMA fighter named Cole Young, who is played by Louis Tan. Through a series of crazy events and wacky characters and hijinks for the whole family, we discover that Cole is the descendant of Hanzo, and this is where the story starts to pick up. But I'm not going to describe the entire plot because this ain't that kind of channel. If you want all the juicy deets, you can either watch the film, watch a different slop tuber, or just read the synopsis on Wikipedia. Now on to my thoughts on the plot. Overall, the story is by far the weakest part of the film in my opinion. It incorporates a Chosen One plot element that just feels completely tacked on and unnecessary. However, I am impressed that they did try to incorporate more of the lore into this movie from the games. This isn't like one of those Resident Evil films. I mean, sure, it's got a special Chosen One OC, but for the most part, it tries to stick to the characters from the games, and even tries to do right by their personalities. I'll get more into the characters in a moment, but that's definitely a highlight for me. Another aspect to this story is that the big tournament is not in it. The entire plot basically consists of an evil wizard attempting to kill the enemy before the tournament begins so his team can have an unfair advantage. Which is a bit weird because the bad guys have won 9 tournaments in a row already. Surely they didn't need to cheat to win again, did they? Finally, when it comes to the story, I feel that it sort of drags a bit in the middle due to a whole training montage thing going on. Like, I get it, you can't have constant life or death fights going on. You gotta give your characters and audience some time to breathe. But I dunno, they could've spiced up the location a bit more. I find cave bases to be sort of boring in films. Kinda drab in my opinion. Would have been better if it was in some sort of cool Shaolin temple instead. I think the sequel is doing something like that, so they at least listened to my criticism 5 years in advance. But yeah, story ain't all that great. Not that bad either, just sorta I think. Now let's move on to the most controversial part, the characters. Especially Cole Young. Okay, time for the elephant in the room. Cole Young. I'll just start right off and say that I personally didn't hate him. Did I think he was the best written character of the film? God no. That goes to Kano, who was played by Josh Lawson. But again, he wasn't terrible. I think for a lot of folks, there was an expectation that Liu Kang would work better as the protagonist. Or even Johnny Cage. Heck, Sonya would have been cool too. But then you kind of run into the problem that all 3 of those characters were already the main protagonists of the 1995 film. I'm personally fine with the film inventing new characters, because after Mortal Kombat 1, the game, I feel like the franchise relies a bit too much on its mainstays. Some new blood every once in a while doesn't hurt, you know? But at the same time, Cole Young doesn't have much of a personality. What I remember is that he's a struggling MMA fighter who really loves his family. He's a real family guy, if you will. And then later on in the film, he gets a special superpower that is literally just plot armor so he can protect his family. Now, to be fair, when Cole fights Bihan, or Sub-Zero if you will, he does get his ass kicked a lot. The armor may protect him, but he ain't invincible with it on. His head is also uncovered, so I'm sure that won't come back to bite him in the sequel if the rumors are to be believed. But yeah, Cole is a polarizing character that I personally don't despise, because hating fictional characters and harassing the actors that play them is psychopathic behavior, but I can't understand why he isn't well liked by folks. Personally, I'd prefer it if in the sequel they just expanded upon his character more, instead of most likely killing him off early. Sometimes you shouldn't do knee-jerk reactions like kill off a character just because people don't like him, because frankly that makes you look like a coward for doing so, I think. Take the criticism and refocus it into improving what's there. Yeah, it'll be difficult, it may not even work, but I think it sends a stronger artistic message personally. But hey, I don't get paid to write films for folks, so what do I know? Oh yeah, and as for the other characters, I really liked almost everyone. As mentioned before, Josh Lawson as Kano was my personal favorite. Dude really gave it his all to make the character a complete scumbag who works as both the comic relief and a legitimate threat. He's also like the only antagonist in the film that gets more than 5 minutes of screen time besides Bihan, and he also has the added bonus of a personality that's just fun to witness. Speaking of Bihan, dude doesn't have much character, but he does make up for it with the patented hype moments and aura that the youth are always talking about. You can feel slasher villain vibes coming off of the dude, which tracks since James Wan and New Line Cinema helped make the film after all. He also has the best fights in the film, which I mean, yeah, Sub-Zero better be kicking ass. Dude is one of the coolest, get it, characters in the franchise. Finally, a special mention goes out to Daniel Nelson, who physically played Cabal, and Damon Harriman, who voiced him. The guy barely appears in the film, but God, he was just so much fun to see. Cabal has always had a special place in my heart, so it was cool to see someone as strange as him finally make it to the big screen. Or the small screen in my case, since I watched it at home. But yeah, I liked most of the folks as stated before. Now for the real reason you watch the movie, the fight scenes. Basically, if you don't care about the story, you can still just look these up on YouTube and have a decent time, I think. The choreography is decent. Like, it ain't Bruce Lee levels, but that's okay, I think. I think the only real complaint I have about the action is constant jump cuts between moves. It gets a little disorienting, and at times, I wish we just had more consistent framing. But even then, the spectacle for some fights make up for that. The big highlights of the film are the first and final fight. Everything else is still passable, but anything involving Scorpion fighting Sub-Zero is worth seeing. I mean, those two were all over the posters for the film. Those fights are why you go and see it in the first place. Something that differentiates the fights in this film from traditional martial arts films is the fact that a lot of the fights go heavy on the special effects. Remember, this is Mortal Kombat. Punching and kicking is fun, but you really watch it to see what sort of special moves and abilities folks are using to carve each other up. Compared to other films, the CGI isn't exactly top of the line, and some of the ice effects look pretty cheap. But hey, this film was made on a relatively small budget compared to most Hollywood films. Again, I can forgive that, but others may not. I say a good test for if you'll enjoy the film and its action is to watch the first couple of minutes. It's got a bit of story, some fights, and a few special effects. It's a good little sampling of everything in case you are on the fence about wasting 110 minutes of your life on a movie you may not like. Although, be warned, there is one piece of CGI that's kinda rough, and that's Goro. I know I often brag about how much I love puppetry, but for this film, I can understand why they did what they did with him. I'm not even complaining about his fight, although making him a dumb brute again was kinda disappointing. See, it's obvious they wanted Goro to be more of a threat in this film, hence the fact that he's CGI. He can do all sorts of moves now, and a bunch of puppeteers and a guy in a suit don't have to deal with technical errors this time around. But man, it's still just sorta rough. I mean, CGI has advanced a lot since the 80s and 90s. I think Goro in this film is technically impressive, but a part of his soul feels like it's missing by not having that practical element, you know? Also, his lighting in the film just feels sort of off. Like, looking at him, you can tell the film didn't have much of a budget, which is why he gets one fight and dies pretty quickly. But hey, Goro was never a final boss in the games, just a sub-boss. And it was still cool to see him make an appearance, even if it wasn't for very long. But hey, there's always a chance he could come back. Although maybe they should work in Kintaro instead. He needs some love too. Moving on, there's the matter of the sets. The film starts off in normal looking places. A forest here, a trailer park junkyard sort of place there, a cave base, and even a farm. Those are more of the practical sets that didn't need a bunch of CGI, well, besides the cave. But then the film does a sort of big fight montage towards the end, where we get to see some of the stages from the games make an appearance. And yeah, those are CGI, but they looked alright. Again, I'm keeping in mind that this was more of a budget title, so I'm probably being more forgiving than other folks were. I think my personal favorite was seeing the pit finally show up in live action. It's just a really neat looking set, even if most of it was green screen. Again, I'm more of a practical guy, but hey, CGI artists deserve credit too, you know? And seeing the trailers for the sequel, it looks like we're getting more stages from the games. Which, I mean, hey, at least the CGI seems to have improved in that capacity. I like the more vibrant colors too. Something I didn't touch on was how drab this film kinda looks at times. So to see more colors beyond just brown and gray is really nice. Finally, we have the music. For this film, the score was composed by Benjamin Wallfish, and it's also alright. Like, I don't think there was anything too stand out, but there also wasn't anything too terrible either. It's like a perfectly serviceable score. It's got plenty of orchestral notes, some electronic beats that harken back to the series' 90s roots, and I hope y'all aren't tired of Techno Syndrome, because this film contains a remix of it as well. It's even incorporated into the final fight as well. Which reminds me, they used it again for the recent Mortal Kombat 2 trailer. What I'm about to say may come off as a bit blasphemous, but just hear me out. Maybe Mortal Kombat needs a song to use other than Techno Syndrome. Like, it's a good song, I love it, but I don't know, a lot of the franchise dabbles into nostalgia for the 95 film, where that song originated from. Maybe, just maybe, we need some new melodies. Or at the very least, could we get some of the game's music remixed and used in the movies as well? That would be neat to see, I think. Or rather hear. Alright, so overall, would I recommend Mortal Kombat 2021? And my answer would be, if you're bored and want to just turn your brain off for a bit, there are worse options. It isn't a groundbreaking film by any means, but I don't think it sets off to be. It simply wanted to tell its story and give us some fight scenes that were decent. And you know what? I think it did well at doing that. I mean, sure, the story isn't anything to write home about, but it's a decent enough vehicle to get us from one battle to another. The characters aren't terrible, even if Cole Young isn't the most exciting choice. The fight scenes are enjoyable enough, and hey, if that's the only part you care about, they are all over YouTube. I'd still say watch the movie because the fights do work a little bit better with character context. But it's pretty easy to tell a good guy apart from a bad guy. The effects and sets are alright too. Nothing too fancy, but for a budget film they get the job done. And as just noted, the music is okay. There's nothing in there that'll worm its way into your ear. I should know, I've been listening to the OST while writing this review. But hey, it serves its purpose. So yeah, Mortal Kombat 2021 is overall just okay. It ain't nothing too fancy, but again, it didn't need to be. In a world where game adaptations range from great, like Arcane, to bottom of the barrel like Borderlands, sometimes it's okay to, well, just be okay. And I mean, that just means the franchise has nowhere to go but up from here. Well, okay, it could go down, but hey, I'm an optimist at heart, so I like to think that the creatives behind the film learned a bit while making it. Hopefully it was the right lessons. With all that said, I hope you all have a wonderful day.